The letter from the HOA arrived on a quiet April morning, its embossed logo glaring at me from the mailbox like a declaration of war. It demanded I remove my father's sailboat, the Drifter, from my dock within 30 days, or face crippling fines. The accusation? It violated some vague aesthetic standards. I stood on my deck at Willow Lake Estates, coffee in hand, staring at the boat that had been my father's pride and joy. The morning sun shimmered across Green Lake, but a storm was brewing, and I was about to become its eye. 3 years ago, I, Ethan Carter, bought this lakefront home after a brutal divorce left me adrift. The modest craftsman house, with its cedar siding and wraparound porch, felt like a lifeline. But it was the dock and the Drifter that truly anchored me. My father, who died of a heart attack 5 years prior, had taught me to sail on that 26-foot sloop when I was a boy. His steady hands guided mine on the tiller, his voice a calm beacon through the wind's chaos. That boat wasn't just wood and sails. It was my last tie to him. I'd spent countless weekends polishing its teak trim, ensuring it gleamed despite its age. To call it an eyesore was not just wrong, it was a personal attack. Willow Lake Estates was a gem. A horseshoe of 75 homes built in the 1980s around a pristine lake. 25, including mine, had private docks. The community marina, a U-shaped dock with a pavilion, was the neighborhood's crown jewel, accessible via a narrow path that, as I'd soon discover, held the key to everything. My neighbors were mostly warm. Tom Reynolds, a retired Navy officer with a sharp wit, lived 2 doors down. Sarah Bennett, a real estate lawyer next door, was as brilliant as she was fierce. But 6 months ago, Claire Donovan took over as HOA president, and the air shifted. Claire campaigned on elevating property values and modernizing standards. Harmless buzzwords, I thought, until that letter hit. I walked to my dock, pine needles crunching underfoot, and studied the Drifter. Its deep blue hull and honeyed teak were flawless. Then I glanced at other docks. A speedboat with peeling paint. 3 houses down, a neglected pontoon. 5 houses over, another boat. Neither had notices. Why me? I called Tom and Sarah, who confirmed Claire was targeting select residents with rules that didn't exist in our bylaws. That evening's HOA meeting would be my chance to fight back. The community center buzzed with tension. Claire, her silver blonde hair in a tight bun, sat at the board table, her diamond bracelet flashing with every gesture. Beside her was Victor Hayes, the vice president, whose real estate deals seemed suspiciously tied to Claire and her husband, Richard. I raised my hand during open discussion, voice steady. My boat's been cited for aesthetic violations, but I can't find any such rule. Can you clarify? Claire's smile was ice. Your boat is dated, Mr. Carter. It detracts from our upscale image. Dated? I held up photos of worse-off boats. Why aren't these cited? Victor smirked. The HOA has discretion. Your boat's a relic. Tom stood, his military bearing cutting through the room. I've lived here since day one. There's no boat aesthetic rule. The secretary, Ellen Parker, shuffled her notes, admitting no such rule existed. Claire snapped. The board doesn't need specific documentation for every decision. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sarah whispered, Richard asked me if you'd sell your property for upscale development. The pieces clicked. This wasn't about the Drifter. It was about forcing me out. I left the meeting furious, the lake's golden ripples mocking the chaos in my mind. At home, I dug through property records and found a bombshell. My land extended beyond what I'd thought, including the narrow path to the marina. A 1997 surveying error had mislabeled it as common area. Legally, I owned the only access to the HOA's prize marina. I called Sarah, who reviewed the documents and gasped. The HOA's been trespassing. You could block the marina. It was a nuclear option, but Claire had declared war. Claire's next move was a fundraiser at the marina, a glitzy event to boost Richard's judicial ambitions. I saw my chance. I hired cascade fencing from another county, ordered "no trespassing" signs, and set installation for the day before her event. I drafted a letter asserting my rights but held off sending it. Claire sent 2 more notices, threatening liens and legal action. I filed them away. Evidence of her harassment. The morning of the fence installation, workers arrived at dawn. By 7:30, cedar posts lined my property, slicing across the Marina path. Neighbors gawked. Claire's Mercedes screeched up at 8:15. "What are you doing?" she shrieked. I offered the surveyor's report. "This is my land. The HOA's been using it without permission." Her face paled. "You're doing this over the boat." I shook my head. "This is about my rights." She called the police, but the officer, after reviewing my documents, sided with me. "This is a civil matter." By noon, the neighborhood was abuzz. Tom brought coffee, grinning. Quite a show. Claire spent hours on her phone, panicking as the fence neared completion. At 3 o'clock, she tried diplomacy. "We have a charity event tomorrow. Let's work this out." I replied, "I'll consider an easement if you acknowledge my rights and address HOA abuses." By 5 o'clock, a 6-foot fence with a locked gate blocked the marina. I held the only key. That evening, Claire led a delegation to my door, board members, a state senator, and local tycoons. In my crowded living room, I laid out the truth, the baseless boat notices, my property ownership, and Richard's inquiries about my land. They admitted no boat rules existed. Victor squirmed. The senator mediated a deal. I'd open the gate for the event if the HOA rescinded the notices and negotiated an easement. Claire's fury was palpable, but she signed. The next morning, I met Claire's ex-husband, Paul Donovan, at a coffee shop. He revealed Claire and Richard's plan to turn Willow Lake into a resort, targeting vulnerable homeowners with HOA harassment. He showed me notes and timelines from their marriage. County records confirmed their company, Donovan Lakefront LLC, had bought 6 properties. Sarah traced it to a luxury rental developer. I called an emergency community meeting after Claire's event. At 4 o'clock, I unlocked the gate for the fundraiser. Claire and Richard schmoozed, oblivious to the storm coming. At 7:30, neighbors filled my backyard. I presented the evidence, targeted harassment, diverted HOA funds, and the resort plan. Neighbors shared their stories, fines for gardens, trucks, trash cans. Ellen revealed $22,000 in unapproved marina spending. Victor confessed Richard promised him resort listings. The crowd's anger surged. Claire and Richard tried to interrupt but were silenced. Tom moved for a no-confidence vote. It passed, 52-3. An interim board, Tom, Sarah, and others, was elected. They rescinded all unfair notices and began an audit. Claire and Richard fled, their plans in ruins. The audit later found $50,000 misallocated. Legal action followed. They sold their home and left. Their company dissolved. Paul bought their house, joining our revitalized community. I restored the drifter, teaching kids to sail as my father had. The fence stayed, but its gate, adorned with an anchor, remained open. The marina thrived with cookouts and concerts. A year later, Willow Lake Estates was a true community. Its HOA transparent, its spirit renewed, property values soared. Sitting on the drifter at sunset, I realized my refusal to yield had saved not just my father's legacy, but our entire neighborhood. Bullies like Claire thrive on fear, but facts, courage, and a stubborn old boat can sink their schemes. My father would have been proud. Thank you for watching Touching Story. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful tales of resilience and justice.